Good morning, everybody. Thank you for allowing me to come here this morning to speak with you. When Mr. Lilford told me that you were doing a session like this, I was very happy to come and speak with you, because I remember these days when you're in school at the end of a year, when it's really sunny outside, you're thinking all I want to do is be on the beach, or looking forward to finishing the school year. And what we've got planned for this Tuesday morning is some boring people coming in to speak to us about what our careers might be in the future. So I'm hoping over the next 10 minutes or so I might sort of help you think about some of your options, talk about some of the stuff that I've been involved in, give you an idea of how I came into the law, a bit about my career, and then leaving you with a few ideas as to what to think about, and some of the lessons that I've learned during my career. I know Mr. Lilford because we play football together on Tuesday nights in a five-a-side league, and all I can say is he is very good and keeps scoring lots of goals. So it's interesting that I'm talking to you about rugby. So quick hands up, who's heard about rugby? Okay, that's a good start, that's most people. Who has heard of the Principality Stadium? Okay, again, that's a good start. Hope I won't spoil it. How many of you have been to the Principality Stadium? Fantastic. Well, I'm one of the people who work for the Welsh Rugby Union and the Principality Stadium, and part of my job is to make sure that there are events that take place there, and that everybody that comes to the stadium is able to enjoy those events in a safe environment. As Mr. Lilford said, I am a lawyer, so I started my career as a lawyer and then was very lucky to get into sport. Growing up, sport was a big passion of mine. I played an awful lot of football, rugby and lots of other things, so I'm very lucky to combine both my work and my hobby, which makes life very easy, or a lot easier than it might otherwise be. So a bit about myself. I grew up in Dinas Powys, so I'm sure some of you sort of lived there. I went to primary school next door at Ysgol Pen y Garth, so I'm a fluent Welsh speaker. I spoke Welsh at home. I then went to a Welsh-speaking secondary school called Glantaf, which is in Cardiff. At that time, it was the only Welsh-speaking secondary school in the area, so I used to get bused over to Cardiff from Dinas Powys. It used to take about an hour or so each way, but that was where I did my schooling. I left school and I went to university in London. And the reason I went to London was that my older brother was already in university in London, and he was having such a great time, I decided that I would follow him to London. During the time that we were both in London, I think we saw each other twice. London's a big place, there are lots of things going on, and actually a really enjoyable place to be, where it really made you grow up. And I'm not quite sure why I got into law, so I could give you a very long story here as to law was something I was really interested in from a young age, that there was somebody at school that told me that law was what I needed to do, that I had the right skill set or mindset to be able to become a successful lawyer, and that the grades that I had in the subjects that I chose meant that I could go into law. But I always wanted to be a footballer. So when I was playing football for Dinas Powys, that's all I wanted to do. I wanted to be a professional footballer. Unfortunately, I wasn't quite good enough. So one day, my gran said to me, "Rodri, what are you going to do when you're older? What job are you going to do?" And I kept saying to her, "I'm going to be a footballer, and I'm going to play for Tottenham Hotspurs." Is that part of the presentation?
It's good, it's going down well.
Fantastic. And I was a Spurs fan, so it's great to see somebody who I hope is also a Spurs fan. So my gran used to say to me, "Well, the chances are that you'll never play for Spurs. You know, are you good enough?" And I'll come back to the moral of that story. So she said to me, "Why don't you be a lawyer?" My brother was training to be a doctor, so she thought she had one grandson who was a doctor, one grandson who might be a lawyer. I said, "Gran, no, all I want to do is play football." And then I started thinking about it. And at school, there were lots of choices, there were lots of subjects that I enjoyed, and I started thinking about what I might do when I was at university. And law is a really, really good general degree. So you can do just about any subject in your A-levels or the Welsh Baccalaureate or whatever you end up doing or studying to do a law degree. As Mr. Lilford said, you know, lots of people think the lawyers are really posh people, they come from really posh schools, they all live in London in massive houses. I didn't. As I said, I grew up in Dinas Powys. My mum and dad were teachers. I went to the local school, and Welsh was my first language. So when I ended up in London studying law, it was a bit of a shock. But actually I realised that what I had done at school gave me a really, really good grounding in what I wanted to do. And for my A-levels, I did a bit of a mix. I did biology, history, and economics. And somebody said to me, well, why are you choosing those three subjects? And I said, well, those are the three subjects that I enjoyed. I think that's a really key message for you. Do what you enjoy. I did a straight law degree. As I said, I went to King's College in London. And for those of you who know London, King's College is right in the middle, very close to Trafalgar Square on the river. Fantastic place. There are about 15,000 people. London had, at that time, 12 million people living there. It's quite an interesting place to live, but quite a difficult and challenging place to live as a student. But I did my 3 years as a law degree there, and then I decided I'd try and become a lawyer. So you had to do then, having done your law degree, an extra year in law school. So I went to Nottingham to do a year at law school. And then I was very lucky to get what they call a training contract. So if you want to become a lawyer, you need to do 2 years in a law firm before you can qualify. I was fortunate enough to get a training contract at a big law firm in London. Having worked there for a number of years, I sort of decided, well, I need to think about what I wanted to do. As I said to you earlier, sport was a big passion of mine. And I wanted to try and maybe combine my passion for sport and then law as a career. And at that time, some of you might remember the 2012 Olympics. I'm not sure if you're too young. But I started working on that in 2005. So in 2005, they started planning a bid for the London Olympics. So as you can see, 7 or 8 years in front of when the Olympics actually happened, the government and the British Olympic Association and others decided it might be time to bid to try and get the Olympics in London. I was part of the team that was setting up various companies and various contracts to enable the Olympics to be held. I then decided that maybe my time in London was coming to an end, and I was very fortunate then to get a phone call from somebody who was in the legal team at UEFA. Some of you might know UEFA as the European sports governing body for football. So they run the European Football Championships, the Champions League, the Europa League, and various other competitions. And they were looking for somebody to come to Switzerland, where their main office is, and to work in their commercial legal team, doing contracts in relation to hosting competitions, sponsorship deals, TV contracts, and various other things in relation to those competitions that you probably see on television. So I was 27 or 28, had a decision to make. Did I stay in London, or did I move to Switzerland? And I was just about to get married. So we had a very interesting conversation about whether we wanted to stay in London, where we had loads of friends, a really, really nice life, enjoying London, very social. I was playing rugby for a local team, or do we try and push ourselves and go to Switzerland to live? So I persuaded my very new wife that it was time for a bit of an adventure, and we ended up going to Switzerland. And we ended up living there for 5 years. And I lived in Geneva, and the office was in a place called Nyon, which is about 23 kilometres to the east of Geneva, on the lake, on Lake Geneva. So if you've ever been in there, I had a fantastic view of Mont Blanc. We were skiing every weekend in the winter. In the summer, we were mountain biking or hiking or swimming in the lake or water skiing, wherever we were doing. It was a really, really fantastic place to be. And I did loads of interesting things. So as a lawyer, I never realised that you could do so many interesting pieces of work. So I did sponsorship deals with Adidas. I helped design the football that was used in the 2008 European Football Championships. I did the contract for the Champions League music. So if you hear that music, I did a contract for that a number of years or so ago. And there were lots and lots and lots of things to do. And there was lots of money. In football, there's lots of money, there are lots of people who want to get involved. We've been in Switzerland about 4 or 5 years, and my eldest son was born there. My wife is also a lawyer, she'd been promoted in her job, and again we had another decision to make. Do we stay in Geneva, send our son to local school, try and improve my French, try and integrate ourselves in Switzerland, and I was really enjoying my work, or do we come back to the UK so that my wife could work and that we'd be closer to family? Given that I persuaded my wife to come out to Switzerland, she then persuaded me to come back to the UK. And I was very fortunate to get a job at the Football Association. So it's very interesting now with England playing in the semi-final tomorrow, that 8 years or so ago, I was working at the Football Association, helping them plan for the World Cup in South Africa, which didn't quite go as well as the current World Cup is going. So it's quite interesting for me as a Welsh person who probably preferred rugby to football, to have then started working in football again. And we are based at Wembley Stadium, so if anyone of you have been there, particularly Spurs fans, fantastic place to be, a great organisation, and again I was doing lots of work. Sponsorship, TV, kit stuff, concerts, you name it, it probably came across the desk. And by that time I had a second son. So my first son's called Owen, my second son's called Rhys, so you can imagine how important it was for me to be speaking Welsh and to bring them up in a Welsh environment. And we were skiing on holiday. So again, very lucky that we were able to go on such nice holidays. And a friend of mine sent me an email and he said, look, the Welsh Rugby Union is looking for somebody to work in their legal team. And again, we had another choice to make. Do I apply for that job? Or do we stay in London again, where we had lots of friends, the children were happy, we had a fantastic lifestyle. And for me it was really important that actually I challenged myself again to say, can I move back to Wales? Can I get a job in a sport that I really enjoyed? So as Mr. Lilford said, sort of 8 years or so ago, I was offered the job as the head of legal affairs at the Welsh Rugby Union. So you might think, well, what does that actually mean? I'm not quite sure I can actually explain to you properly what it means, because every day is different. There are all sorts of legal issues that come across my desk, not just for the Welsh Rugby Union as the sport, but also for Principality Stadium. So what sort of things do I do? Well, I do everything from sponsorship agreements. Some of you may have seen the national head coach, or the new national head coach to replace Warren Gatland was announced yesterday, Wayne Peaback. I did his contracts. Some of you may have seen Ed Sheeran or Beyonce and Jay-Z at the stadium over the last few weeks. Well, my team are responsible for those contracts. And very similarly to the person who was speaking to you before, our job when we work for the Welsh Rugby Union or the Principality Stadium is to make sure that everybody, as I said earlier, who comes into the stadium is safe and has an enjoyable time. So every year, there are about 1.5 million people come into the stadium. So part of my job is to make sure it's a safe environment and that we're able to look after those people. So over the 8 years or so, as Andy says, said, I've been involved in lots of things. I've been involved in that issue that was explained to you earlier about the game in France. A few weeks ago, I was involved when Ross Moriarty had a red card playing for Argentina. Unfortunately, I wasn't in Argentina, but I was on the phone helping our team on the ground to do the disciplinary hearing. I've been on the television, I've been on the radio talking about various things. I've been involved in huge multi-million-pound sponsorship agreements. And don't forget, I grew up in Dinas Powys. So don't let anybody tell you that you can't reach your goals and that nothing is achievable. That's enough about me and my role. I just want to talk a little bit about the WRU as an organisation. We have 6 values. So I think for any business, it's really, really important that you as a business can explain why you do things and what you stand for. Probably no different to the school. I didn't come to St. Cyres, but the first thing I thought when I came in is, wow, what an incredibly fortunate bunch of children there are here, that you come to a school, there's almost brand new with some fantastic facilities, but you also sort of see what the school stands for. And then I walk past the board where there are former pupils, and none of them are my friends. So actually I can see then that part of the values of the school are to remember those people who have passed through the corridors before you. And I'll come back to that and why I think it's really important. But as you can see, our values is the Welsh Rugby Union. And I'm talking here not just about the 23 men who play for Wales at Principality Stadium, it's all rugby. It's boys, girls, mixed ability, disability, sevens, tag, beach, 15-a-side. Some of you might play rugby for the school, some of you might play rugby outside of school on a Saturday morning. This is everything we do. But 6 very important words, and 6 very important words for any work, but most particularly as a lawyer in an organisation like that. Courage, or derder in Welsh. Courage. You've got to be really brave sometimes. You've got to be really brave to do what you think is the right thing. Sometimes people will criticise you for doing what you're doing, but that should never ever put you off. You should be brave enough to believe in yourself and believe in what you're doing for the right things, for the right reasons and the right time. So for me, what does that mean? Sometimes in my job, I have to say, no, you can't do it. And the reason for that is there might be a legal reason, or there might be some other contractual obligation that means you can't do it. So you've got to stand up for yourself and say no, but actually be very brave in doing so, explaining why you're doing so, and then find a reason that you can do it. Excellence, or rhagoriaeth. Excellence in everything we do. So doing everything right to the best of our ability at every single time that you do something. And again, for me in my job, I've got to be excellent every day. Now there's some days I get up and I go, oh, I haven't slept very well last night, or it was too hot, or my children were misbehaving. But you've got to get to work and do your best 100% of the time. Because if my work isn't good enough, and I fail to reach excellent, then I'm letting myself down, and I'm letting the organisation down. Humour. You might think, well, what's that bloke with a microphone talking to us about humour? Well, actually, humour is really important. Because if you don't enjoy life, if you don't enjoy your work, then things are going to be pretty difficult. So bringing some humour, when it's appropriate, into your work, or into your life in general, or whether it's at school. I'm not talking about throwing things at your teachers or tripping people up in the corridor or doing something. It's actually responding in an appropriate way to lighten the situation. I have been in lots of meetings where it could go horribly wrong, where people are screaming and shouting and people have got different positions, and actually sometimes humour just brings the meeting back down to earth a little bit. Family. For me, family outside of the office is probably the most important thing for me. I can see here you're a family of people. You're a team. Working together, you get a better result. For us as an organisation, we're a family. We talk about a team on the pitch performing as well as they can be, getting to semi-finals of World Cups, etc., winning championships. But if you haven't got the structure right off the pitch, you're not going to get the structure right on the pitch. I feel as if I'm in Britain's Got Talent and somebody's pressing the buzzer. Integrity, or cywirdeb. As a lawyer, this is probably the most important thing. You have professional obligations, you have responsibilities, and you've got accountabilities to uphold integrity at all times. Somebody might say to you, let's do this. And you might be thinking, well, we could do that, but that might be breaking a law, or that might cause us issues somewhere else. So you've got to be the person that pulls the organisation up and say, hang on a minute, I'm upholding the integrity of the organisation, and then I think we should do this. And finally, success. Everything you do, whether it's in life or behind your desk as I do it, is all about success. It's all about being your best, doing your best, and reaching your goals. And if you can do everything else, then you'll be successful. And for us, success isn't just about Wales winning a World Cup, although that would be absolutely fantastic, and I think it might happen next year. It's about doing the right things. It's about getting more people playing rugby. It's about getting more people interested in rugby. It's about getting more people coming to the stadium. It's about getting more events at the stadium. So they're just 6 words, but if you think about what they mean, they're very important both to me outside of work, but also inside of work. I'd like to think that every single one of you could think why those are important for you. And just very briefly, one final slide. I just wanted to leave you with some things that I've learned. And this isn't just because of what I do or the fact that I did law at university or that I did biology at A-level or wherever it might be. I think these 6 things are things I'd like to leave with you as things that I've learned. And I think you could apply these to whatever you do. Your choices for next year, how you're going to behave on the first day back at term, what you're going to do over the summer, what you're going to do in 25 years' time. Because it would be absolutely fantastic for me if somebody in the audience today thought, you know what, I'm going to do something that in 25 years' time, Mr. Lilford will be inviting me back to speak at my former school. First thing for me, respect. You've got to respect yourself, respect others. That might be your gran, because you listen to advice, and that she made her proud by becoming a lawyer. Might be respecting your teachers, might be respecting each other. It's actually respecting yourself as well, and making sure that you respect others. And sometimes people might not respect you, but don't let that blow you off course. Treat others in the way that you wish yourself to be treated. Never give up. There are lots of times in my career where I could have just given up, said it's too difficult, can't be bothered, somebody's upset me, it's too difficult, moving to Switzerland, wherever. But actually, if you give up, you've lost. Never ever give up, and never ever let anyone tell you that you can't reach your goals. Set yourself some goals and never give up until you reach them. I could have stayed in Dinas Powys, I could have done whatever, bobbled along, but actually I decided that my career wanted to go in a certain direction, and I haven't given up, and still haven't given up. You might think you know everything, you don't. I don't know everything. Nobody knows everything. You don't know everything. There is always an opportunity to learn. And if you can use it as an opportunity to learn, when people tell you it can't be done, prove them wrong. Prove them you can do it. Prove them that there is an opportunity. You might not get all of the questions right in your exam paper, but if you get something wrong, use it as an opportunity to learn. Don't give up. Push yourself. Adopt a positive mindset. Everybody learns something every day. Challenge yourself. If you can't challenge yourself, you haven't got goals, what's the point? There is no point sitting there going, don't know what I'm going to do today, don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow, next week, next month. Set yourself some challenges and make sure you hit them. Do what you can to hit the challenges that you set yourself. Be positive and enjoy what you do. What's the point living your life if you're not positive and if you're not enjoying what you do? We all have good days, we all have bad days, but actually if you can turn your thinking to be positive, and if you suffer a setback, you think, right, what I'm going to do tomorrow to make this better is this. You might fall out with mum or dad, gran or granddad, boyfriend, girlfriend, teacher, football coach, whoever. Turn that around, just sort of say, right, why did that happen, and how can I make sure that doesn't happen again? And finally, make the most of your opportunities. Make sure you have no regrets. You might do something today that in 25 years' time, you look back and go, why on earth did I do that? I really, really regret doing that. Make sure that doesn't happen. As I said, I've been very lucky in my career to have lots of opportunities. But those opportunities could also have passed me by. If I decided not to go to London, not to go to Switzerland, not to listen to my gran's advice, not to listen to my teachers at school. If you do that, you'll wake up in 20 years' time and you go, what have I done with my life? Please, please don't let that happen to you. Have no regrets, make the most of it, and make sure your opportunities are there to be taken. Thank you very much.